Howdy folks, it's Meandering Mike in the Man Cave of Madness. It's the middle of the day and we are doing one of my segments called Hexagon Alley. This is where we look into the dark, dusty, crusty back alleys of the Hex Encounter wargame world. This particular title, Dunkerque 1940, the campaign for France, is from Simulation Design Corporation, SDC, 1972. Yes, this is an oldie moldy, folks. Let's go ahead and dig in. Oh no, it's not an unboxing. This is old. It's new to me. I just recently bought it, but it's in one of these bookcase style games. I'm going to get this open without tearing the box. It's stuck in there pretty good. Now, I have heard that it's hard to find these with all these glued on front and back cover and the sides button. This was actually loose on mine and I had to glue stick that back on. Okay, let's open this up here. So 1972, the designer on this is Dana Lombardy. All right, you can even see the old, some kind of maybe coffee stain or something on there. Okay, there's different rules levels. Game level 1, 2, and 3. They start with the land forces, the air forces, and then the sea forces. So it introduces more rules as you go along. So basically a basic, intermediate, advanced game. This is a single sheet. Includes some charts, ship combat, and evacuation tables. Here's an example of an air unit, aircraft type, number of factors. Bomber, dive bombers, fighters, types A, B, or C. Aircraft combat tables, attacking unit. FABC, anti-aircraft fire. Okay. Whether they're attacking motorized or non-motorized units. So the dive bombers, strafing with fighters, etc. All right. This is kind of like a heavy paper, light cardstock. So there's 4 pages of basic rules, 2 pages of the intermediate, basically 1 page of rules and charts, and then the same thing with the Navy, 1 page of rules and charts. So it's not, I have not read this yet. I have not had time. This is an exploration. Get more coffee stains. Good old dusty, crusty stuff from Hexagon Alley here. Okay, so it uses a sort of a case system with letters. So setup, so S1, S2, S3, etc. Victory conditions, always good to have in early on in the war. German player win if the end of turn 24. He's eliminated equivalent of 3 Allied full-strength units for every German full-strength unit eliminated. So as long as they have 3-1 loss, or it's a strategic victory. If it's a 2-1 ratio, it's a tactical victory. The Allied wins if he has, if he actually can kill equal or more of the Germans, they can win. Any other result is a draw. Game procedure, gameplay, P. Movement, so M rules. Stacking, which is actually a subset of, that's interesting. M6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's a little blank spot, which is their normal space, sort of a paragraph. Then it goes to M12. So instead of S for stacking, we've had S for setup. Stacking is a subsection of movement. So they do have like subtitles. So they have movement, the movement procedure in general, and M, movement costs, stacking. But their M11 is missing. M11 is missing. Now, let's see. Combat. So like combat, sea level. So like they didn't leave like 11 on purpose for everything. It just, I don't know what happened to rule M11. Reinforcements are evacuation, E subsection, combat C. So it's easier if you're referring to rules, like within one rule referring to another, having that letter up front would make it easy to go find it. Now, block units. Now, they don't mean blocks, like is it a block game? Holds, German substitute. So they call this the U section for units, blocking. So what was the B for something else? Why didn't they use B? Setup, V, victory, conditions, P, gameplay, M, movement, reinforcement, evacuation, combat, holds, German substitute, armor units. I don't know why they just use B. D for dummy counters. Maybe in one of these Air Force rules. Now that's interesting. Those are all A for air rules. Okay. So on the air page, A whatever is an air rule. Sea forces, they used Z. Z out at sea. So I don't know. There's no reason they couldn't have called these B for block units. Because this is German substitute arm units, G. Those are also units. Yeah, it makes no sense to me why they didn't call that B. Maybe at some point they had something else that they were going to call B and they changed it and then they just didn't want to, I don't know. So, now, something I have heard, and I'm not reading through all these rules right now, that this is a diceless combat system. Okay, and I should maybe zoom out a little bit. You won't be able to see the text, but you'll see more of the page. I have enough light on there. I don't know. In hex combat. Position cards, depending on the terrain. 12 matrices. So that's based on the type. Armor versus armor, armor versus infantry versus armor. There are no multiple unit battles, each attacking. So if you have a stack of guys, you're going to do them one at a time. You're going to have like a lead unit, and he'll battle, and then you battle with the next one. One attacking unit may not fight more than one defending unit at a time. Two or more attacking units may all attack the same defending unit, but each is considered a separate attack. You do not have to attack all the defending units in the hex, but if you move into or remain in the hex containing enemy units, at least one battle must be fought. Interesting. Now that's gonna take some tactical consideration. My brain is not totally wrapped around that little bit that I've read there, but how that comes into play in terms of defense, mobile defense, how that's going to work out in the tactical implications, that's going to be interesting. All right. But I guess it's diceless. So they're talking about the matrices. Let's see, time records. So there's a record track. All right. No, unfortunately. So this is one of those, here's the terrain key, but it doesn't explain the terrain effects here. Well, again, the terrain, in this case, it's part of it's going to affect the matrices, I think it said. So, and since it's diceless, it's not going to be like, doubling or a die roll add or something, because I believe these are setup reinforcements. That's for the Allies, the Germans. Setup reinforcements. Defense position cards. So 1D, 1A. So attacker, defender loss, attacker loss, armor versus armor. Now, I'm not sure what this, are you able to see that? I'm going to zoom in to the max. There's shading where here's armor versus armor. And I'm not sure if that's, are these units with like, oh, you've been damaged, reduced? Are they double-sided? Let's see here, I'm digging in the box. Now, let me zoom back out for a second. This box, this is already punched, it's an old game. This here is a cardboard sort of insert that someone made, that they hand glued in there. So look at that disc through. That's this. It was actually worse when I first got it. Things I semi sorted them out a little bit better. These are kind of thick counters for 1972. They're kind of big. So that's kind of nice. They're not too thick. They're not like Blue Panther thick, which is too thick. Big naval missiles. They're not double-sided. So I do not know at this point what it means to have, zoom back in, this shading. So if you're attacking with, which I was thinking somehow this is half strength or somehow damaged or disrupted or something, weakened it somehow, and I don't know how you, I'm sorry, gotta check that camera angle. So if you got a full strength unit attacking a half strength unit, that's what I'm going to assume it is. That somehow you're delineated as damaged or otherwise. You're using a whole different chart. Where if they're equal strength, you know, so shaded, half shaded, whatever that means. And then if you're attacking the weakened guy versus this, obviously you're at a bigger disadvantage. Now, I would have to look at these to see, all right. So if we look at, say, a half strength against another half strength guy, I'm trying to see where there's a, okay, so the attacker taking losses. Oops, again, I'm sorry, it sunk down there. It's like in this column, so I'm assuming that each side is like picking a tactic or some option 1 through 4, and you're cross-referencing it. So in this first column, there's 2 chances for the attacker to take damage. Where over here, there's 3. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. 2, 2, 2, the same. 2. Okay, so slightly more damage here. So there's still 3 chances. So I wonder if option 1 is like the guy's trying to escape. I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure that out because they're not labeled. They just got 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't say right here what those options actually mean. But here, this guy takes 2 instead of 1. 1, 3. That's the same as the attacker. The defender, 1, 2, 3. He's losing more over here than here. So a little mix between a little more attacker loss, a little more defender loss. Armor versus infantry. Or half strength, half strength. So again, the same pattern. And so armor versus infantry, much more damage done against the defender. Attacking losses, the level seems about the same, but sort of rearranged what the option is. A little more here. So slightly more deadly on the attacker, chance that they'll take losses than attacking other armor. But they're definitely doing more damage to the defender on average. So it's an interesting one, but you have no notion of combined arms. So that's a disadvantage of this system. Whereas suppose if you had an armor and an infantry, you could attack with the infantry first, infantry on infantry. Well, interesting. There's only 3 options here. That's interesting. So when armor's involved on the attack, there's... Okay, so it's the attacker. So someone has penned in this note. It's attacker on the side and defender across the top. There's 4 options when you're attacking with armor. There's only 3 options when you're attacking with infantry. So you could try to get in there and weaken with your infantry first and then have your armor hit. So if you have full strength infantry, then you could get this column here. If you manage to have your infantry weaken the guy, then your armor is less, well, in this option, that, well, yeah, a little less loss here. More loss here. Interesting. That's weird. Wait. Yes. Option 4 here. Full strength armor versus a full strength infantry. 1, 1, and 2. Against half strength, this column here is actually a chance, this particular combination, you could take more damage, but the defender does lose more. So if you're comparing the same, if you chose the same cards depending on its full strength versus, I hope this is making sense. I'm trying to figure this out as I go, but that seems weird. The attacker could actually take more loss here, but you are killing more of the defender. This is definitely going to take some getting used to, and what usually the defenders are unclear. So that, okay, whole different card if the defender is on woods or rough or river, canal, hex. So this is probably one of those old school games where the rivers are in the hex instead of on the hex side. Oh, and there's a third card for major cities, canals, or swamp. Now that's interesting. River canal versus canal. All right, is there actually a difference there? So we had, where was that? Back here. Let's zoom out a little bit. So you can, it's a problem that zooming in too close, easier for you to read it, but then I don't always, I'm pointing at the right spot. River canal. Blue line passing through 2 sides of a hex or from coast edge through clear if it's a half, or a coast hex with no other, woods, rough, swamp. Okay, that's canals. Very distinctive pattern. Okay, just a simple river or canal. Okay, that's obviously a river. This is a canal. This is canals. So yes, this would be more difficult terrain. Have to cross over canal to canal, etc. in a major city. Okay, so that's terrain position 3. And it looks like on average a lot more losses on average for the attacker. So it'll be interesting to have to compare, take quite some analysis to see statistically, you know, what the losses are in that. So I'm intrigued by that. There's probably a reason why this kind of thing didn't catch on too much. I like the options, okay? I personally would rather see, like as an option rule, you have options that can affect and have a modifier. And then you have a normal combat results table. I like the fog of war, the element of chaos. Rolling some dice is fine with me. It's not. It's too lucky. It's not. I mean, it's based on factors. There's modifiers. The stronger you are, the weaker they are. The defensive terrain benefit they have or not, etc. And personally, I like to see things based on something like 2d6 or back in these days. 72 they only had d6. They started using polyhedra dice in the mid 70s for role-playing games, but those were actually gotten from educational supplies. I suppose it could have been around as educational tools of learning geometry and math or whatnot, the polyhedra dice, but I personally like 2d10. I'll do a whole segment sometime on the magic of 2d10 as a quote-unquote bell curve. It's actually the magic triangle to me. But I like having things that are, you have potential swinginess, but you have a nice central value. So you can sort of have a good expectation of what might happen, but it's easy to get the outliers in there, but it's not good odds that there'll be an outlier. So anyway, that's just my thought. Something that might combine as an option rule these kind of matrix of choice for a modifier, which are hard to do if you're playing solo. If you pick one side as a random, you pick the other one. But if it's like, if you're selecting both sides, it's like, can you really forget what you just selected, 2 seconds ago? But for solo play, you could leave that out, and then you could just use the dice. But otherwise, you could select these and get a modifier. All right. Anyway, let's move on. We look at the different types. So decks of silhouettes for the armor, motorized anti-aircraft flak. All right, fortress infantry. Okay, so now that separately from block unit. I'm still not sure what that. Are there actually units in here that? Oh, there are. I'll be darned. All right, that's what a half strength. It's an actual. There's still only one-sided, but those are half strength units. Motorized infantry, half strength there. So this must be a movement allowance. All right, the one number, 8s, 5s, and that's a half strength. So it's not something you do damage. Now the result on here of D in attacker loss, well, is that the number of hexes they have to retreat, or I mean, if you just got one unit in the square, the different number, what does that mean? I'm too curious. I got to find that out, folks. All right. Defender option 1. Defender withdraw. Attacker's option 4 sometimes gives a breakthrough. Choice 1, 2, 3, 4 in secret. Where does it say what the results are? 1, 2, 3. Hold units. Holds. So that the holds. This is like a suppression, a disruption factors Okay, a full strength unit that receives 4 holds is reduced to a half strength unit. A half strength unit receives 4 holds is eliminated. Holds are cumulative. So this is cumulative damage. I don't know why they're calling it holds. That's a horrible name. Disruption, suppression, just cumulative, casualties, damage, whatever. It does say holds reduce the movement rate. 1 hold has no effect. 2 holds reduces it by 2. For motorized, 1 for another. 3 holds reduces it by 4. Wow. So this is something you need a player aid. Is there a chart here somewhere that had that? I'm not. Here's photocopies of the rules and such. Okay, that's handy. Extra goodies in there. Designer notes. Got to read those. There's probably some helpful hints in there. Dana Lombardy. That little 1 hold, no effect at all. 2 holds, suddenly not like, it's not like subtract 1 from the number of holds. It's like suddenly, boom, 2 holds. Now you have a 2 movement rate loss if you're motorized, 1 otherwise. 3 holds, down by 4 or 2. No unit is ever removed with less 1 hex. Now, no. Something is odd here. When you get to 4 holds, you're reduced. Okay. Wait a minute. Full strength unit receives 2 holds. Another 3 holds unturned. It is therefore reduced to a half strength unit with 1 hold remaining. But so suddenly, if you're at 3 holds, okay, your motorized movement rate's being reduced by 4. If you take 1 more hold, you're reduced to half strength, but suddenly you have no impairment on your movement at all, because like you've taken off all those holds to reduce them by strength. And then as you start taking more holds, that is weird. Okay. That is bizarre. I like the cumulative damage idea. I mean, it's not strength points, because if you have holds on you, there's no effect on your fighting ability until you're down to half strength. As we saw from the matrices, it's like, okay, if you're half strength, you're going to use a different matrix. But matrix, singular, matrices, plural. This is weird. Okay. How that plays out, but again, I can see why this particular system didn't go on to be used, to my knowledge, in other games. There's some interesting thoughts here, but I can already see some flaws in the system. But anyway, you need a player aid sitting on the side to all right. This is what they were calling a block unit. It's the shit. Can you see that pinkish, kind of grayish pinkish on the side there? That's a quote-unquote block unit. Again, what that's actually supposed to represent, I do not know. Okay, 8. So those would be the holds, suppression, disruption, damage, casualties, whatever. I don't know. Oh, you can't see there. I should tilt down. Sorry, folks. Zoom in a little bit. Cross that nuts. All right. Trying to look at some of the counters. The turn marker. Yay. Air units. Okay, so here is a tank unit that only moves 5. So we saw some of that armor that had an 8 movement allowance. I wonder if those are just recon units or something. All right, so your non-motorized infantry only moves 3. 1 hold or damage on them doesn't reduce their movement allowance, but 2 will reduce it by 1. 3 would reduce it by 2, so they'd be down to a 1 movement rate, and then 4 would make them. And so obviously you have to replace somewhere in there. There's, just replacement units to swap it for a half strength. Which 1972, they didn't do back printed counters. That was too much of a pain. It's like here. It's kind of like the Avalon Hill colors on the back. You know, they tended to do the pink and blue a lot early on, but these do have grayish and a different color blue. So this is like an actual paper, the backing of these colored paper, while this is printed on there. You can see I don't know if you can see the little dot pattern in there. Good old ships, British and French. I'll just poke around a little more here. Obviously, these I will probably carefully remove this. Can you see that wiggling over here? It's loose. It's not all glued down. It was a good attempt, but I will put these in a tray. I will counter clip these, and I will use a nice plastic tray of some kind or another. Oop, some of these are separating a little bit. That can be okay. There's another 5 strength armor, or not 5 movement allowance armor. All right, yeah, what a mess. All right, there's one. All right. Now silhouette wise, it just looks like a normal armor thing. So they don't talk about having armored car units or anything like that, but this was just more mobile. All right, so let's look at the map. We have not looked at the map as of yet. I'm going to throw these counters back in there. I do like the size of these counters. The thickness is good. Now, they might have, face down movement until something's revealed. I don't know about that yet, so there might be a reason not to have them back printed anyway. But let us move this aside and see what we can do here with this map. It's a mounted map. All right, for 1972. Was that normal at all? When did Panzer Blitz come out? Was it 74? Was it 72? I don't know. All right. Oops, sorry, we're losing stuff there. All right, so here is all those canals. There's Dunkirk right here. And there's Calais. Oops, I can't quite see that. Go up, there we go. Boulogne, Calais, Saint-Omer, Dunkirk, La Panne, Newport, Furnes. I'm not sure. In French, my butchered attempts. So the map is kind of a nice muted palette. I kind of like it. The hilly areas. Oh, I'm just not quite there. Let me go that one. All right, so hills, forests, rivers. Here's some obvious. These would be canals. These straight ones. Those are obviously canals, but functionally, rivers and canals are the same versus the canals plural. So all this area up here is on that third defensive chart, and the big urban areas. All right, now there are little overlaid grids. There are letters, I'm gonna zoom in here, for each column. Little tiny letters, A, B, C, D. Can you read that? Like, so Dunkerque is in the T, oh, over there. Over here. That's the T column, S, R, etc. So go from A to Y, we're one short. And then there's these squarish areas imposed over them. So the D2 sector, the D3 sector. So those are capital letters. So the lowercase letters are each column head. So that's like J, K. But we have like, I need to zoom out more. So actually what, that's weird. That's A4, 5, 6, 7. So, okay, there. So this is only one. This is D1 sector. So A, B, C, D, E, F. So there's the broader columns, capital A, B, C, D. And then sort of a row of sectors. Here's at 1 level, 2 level, 3 level, 4 level. So you can find it. It's a weird offset grid pattern of sectors on top of the hexes. You don't have any numbering of the hexes row-wise, only the columns. But you could identify like, oh, Ara is in, lowercase o in the D5 sector. So you could say, well, D5, you could find it, and then you could be able to see it. But if you wanted to describe the square, this one here, in the N column, lowercase n, D5, that's southwestish of Ara 2 away, you don't have a way to very specifically describe that square in a coordinate grid pattern. All right, well, that's the map. I kind of like it. It's not fancy, but it certainly looks functional for the time period. It's not too bright and colorful crazy. It's a nice muted palette, and I kind of like it. And again, since it's combat in hexes, not adjacent hexes, having the rivers or canals in the hexes makes more sense. And obviously there's these boxes here that are probably some kind of like the things at sea that are trying to evacuate people. All right. So if I understand correctly, the Germans, the situation, the Germans are coming from this direction that they had penetrated through, and then are driving this way. Is I think the main thrust is coming from this direction. So it's not like along this. I mean, I'm sure they come on at certain points. Oh, there is way over here. Let's zoom in. All right, and we can see diagonally 1, 2, 3. Oh goodness. So to 18. Wait a minute. 17. No, 16. 20. So even coming across the bottom. Can you see that? Yeah. So the far. It's the 28th diagonal, the 27th. 28th. So you can get an exact. So my mistake. So I found it. So anyway, that's Meandering Mike. We're continuing to meander. We're at 40 minutes here almost. So let's call it quits here. Dunkerque, 1940, campaign for France, 20th to 31st of May. The French lines have collapsed. The Germans have not completely got Paris yet, I don't think. I think at some point they start pulling units off of this drive to try to finish off and get the French all said and done. But, you know, they're trying to prevent the Brits from escaping, etc. And the main focus, of course, at Dunkirk. So, this was another episode of Meandering Mike's Hexagon Alley, the dark, dingy, crusty back roads, back alleyways of hex and counter wargaming. This was from Simulation Design Corporation, 1972, designed by Dana Lombardy, Dunkirk, 1940. So, all you good folks out there, I hope you've enjoyed this. If you do, make sure you like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So take care, and ciao.